สวัสดีค่ะ Welcome to Hot Thai Kitchen. I am so excited today to finally have a new and improved Khao Soi recipe to share with you all. Now, when I originally shared my first Khao Soi recipe over 10 years ago, very few people knew about Khao Soi. But fast forward to today, it's one of the most popular Thai dishes to a point where it was recently asked, is Khao Soi the new Pad Thai? Well, I'm not surprised it has become so popular because it is one of the most delicious things Thai food has to offer. And I mean, most people will have it and be hooked. You've got chewy noodles and crispy noodles all in one, a really aromatic curry broth, super tender braised meat. I mean, what is not to like, right? Now, there's a bit of work involved in making khao soi from scratch, but it is one of those things that you can make on the weekend and then you can enjoy it throughout the week. We're going to start by making khao soi curry paste from scratch because they don't sell them pre-made. Not that I've seen anyway. However, in my book Sabai, I do have a cheat version in here where you can take store-bought red curry paste and then modify it because Sabai is all about weeknight cooking, so we don't want to be making curry paste from scratch on a Wednesday night. It doesn't taste the same as the one made from scratch, but it will satisfy your cravings in a pinch. However, if you have time, I really encourage you to make it from scratch because it does taste better. And compared to other kinds of Thai curry paste, it's actually relatively simple. All right, with that out of the way, let's get started with the curry paste. First, we've got the spice that makes khao soi unique, black cardamom. More on this in a bit. I'm going to crack the pods open and then take out the seeds. I'm going to toast the seeds along with some coriander seeds, keeping them moving over medium-high heat until the coriander seeds start to brown and become super aromatic. And you'll notice they'll start to dance a little bit in the pan as well. We will take these out and then set them aside for now. In the same pan, I'm going to char some ginger and turmeric slices on high heat until they are a little bit charred around the edges. And we're using high heat, so you don't want to be using a non-stick pan for this. Once you see a little bit of browning, I'm going to flip and sear the other side. You won't see so much browning because there's not a ton of sugar content in these herbs, but you should see some. The toasting will deepen the flavor and mellow out the spiciness of the ginger a little bit as well. Take them out, and then there's one last thing to char, and that is some shallots. And because the shallots are high in sugar, these will char almost instantly. And I'm just going to stir them around a bit until I've got some nice spots, and out they come. By the way, if you're using a stainless steel pan, don't be alarmed at these black stains. Just turn off the heat and then add some water and then let it soak. Once it's cool enough to handle, use a steel wool to scrub and it should all come off pretty easily. And if not the first time, eventually it does. The last ingredients for the paste is mild dried chilies, which I'm going to remove the stems and then cut into chunks. Traditionally, we would use spur chilies, but here I'm using puya peppers, which is quite similar. Guajillo will also work. And I'm going to shake off most of the seeds. No need to obsess over it, just whatever comes out is fine. I'm going to grind these in a coffee grinder along with the coriander and the black cardamom seeds, and then get this into a powder. I'm going to finish the paste in a heavy-duty mortar and pestle. You can use an immersion blender, as you may have seen me do before with other paste, but you'll need to at least double the recipe to get it to blend properly. First, I'm going to pound just the ginger and the turmeric into a paste. Then I'm going to add some shallots and some coarse salt, which will help add friction and make it a bit easier to pound, and then get that into a fine paste. Once it starts to feel wet and slippery, add some of the dried spices to help absorb the liquid, and it'll be easier to pound. And pro tip, if you can Asian squat, pounding on the floor gives you better leverage and adds a touch of authenticity. Once that's fine, add the rest of the spices if there's still any left, and then just pound to mix well. And that is it. You can use it right away or freeze it for another day. If you've seen me make other kinds of Thai curry paste, you might notice that khao soi paste is quite different in a few ways, but specifically in the use of black cardamom. Now, this is a funky little spice that smells a bit like, to me, leather, smoke, and menthol. Adam says he thinks it smells like peaty scotch. It's very good. But there's no other Thai dish that uses it, not that I know of anyway. And that's because khao soi is not a dish that originated in Thailand. We don't actually know the exact origin of khao soi, but the going theory is that it came to Thailand from Chinese Muslims from the Yunnan region that migrated into northern Thailand, and that it was influenced by a similar Burmese dish called ono khao soi. Khao soi, khao soi. You can kind of see what might have happened there, right? I'll go into more details about the history in the blog post, but once khao soi arrived in Thailand, Thai people started modifying it to suit our palate. But different Thai people in different places modified it differently. This is why if you go to Thailand and you get 5 different khao soi, they can be completely different from each other. Some's going to be light and brothy, and others are going to be thick and rich and loaded with spices. So my khao soi recipe is just one that I personally like. But if you go to Thailand and you have something that's completely different, now you know why. So that's a little historical fun fact about khao soi, and now let's make the curry. I'm adding some of our coconut milk to a pot and then bringing it to a boil. Then the curry paste goes in and I'm going to stir to get the curry paste mixed in with the coconut milk. And then I'm going to keep stirring for a few more minutes until the coconut oil starts to sizzle out of the paste, like you can see here. That's our cue that the curry paste is now frying, and now I add the rest of my coconut milk and then I'm going to stir to dissolve the paste. Then I'm going to add some water and season with soy sauce, black soy sauce, and some palm sugar. I'm making khao soi chicken today, and so we're going to use chicken drumsticks, and the bones and the connective tissue in the drumsticks are going to make the broth incredibly flavorful. You can also use drumettes if you prefer. Let this simmer gently for 40 minutes until the drums are fork tender. By the way, I like my khao soi broth to be on the lighter side. If you prefer it rich and thick, I'll include modifications in the blog post. It smells so good right now. The chicken is super fork tender now, and I just need to do some final adjustment of seasoning, which you always want to do whenever you're cooking something that involves simmering for a long time, because we don't know how much liquid evaporated. Ooh. Oh, these chilies are a little spicier than my last batch. Oh, it's perfect. As always, when making noodle soup, you want this to be strongly seasoned because the noodles will dilute this a bunch. I'm going to add just a touch more salt in the form of fish sauce, which I like to add because I just find, if you can add umami along with salt, why not, right? I just think it tastes so good to add a little bit of fish sauce. And that is it. Look at that. And by the way, pro tip, this will taste better tomorrow because the chicken will have had time to absorb all of the seasoning and everything. So if you can do this on the weekend and then wait one day to have it, it will be even better. So the bulk of the work is actually done. Now we just have to do the little bits and pieces, all of which can be made in advance, starting with the crispy noodles. So khao soi has boiled noodles in the soup and then crispy fried noodles on top. And lucky for us, they can be the same noodles. So khao soi is going to use wheat-based egg noodles. And typically in Thailand, they're going to be flat noodles like these, but they don't have to be. They can be round. And in fact, I tried khao soi with Japanese ramen noodles and it was really good. So I'm going to take one of these and fry them, and then the rest I save for my soup. And before you fry, you want to, it's super long, loosen the noodles up and then cut them down a little bit just so it's easier to manage. Doesn't have to be, an exact length, just so that it's not this giant nest once you put it in the fryer. So I've got my oil heating up to about 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and then a little bit of noodles go in at a time because they puff up a lot. And if you add the whole thing in, it's just going to overflow out of your pot. And ideally, you want the oil to be deep enough so that you can kind of press and get them submerged so they fry evenly. Another reason you don't want to just dump the whole thing of noodles is they'll be tangled up and then you'll end up having to break them apart in order to get them to separate. So if you, for whatever reason, don't have enough oil, you'll need to flip the noodles so that the top fries evenly. Now, what you're looking for is for the bubbles to almost be completely gone. because bubbles are moisture exiting the food, evaporating out. So if there's a lot of bubbles, that means a lot of moisture is left. That means not crispy. But once the bubble is almost gone like this, then it's crispy. It doesn't have to be like completely gone, but it should be very, very subtle. Now, that's it. And you can make this in advance. Keep it in an airtight container for like a week. You can do this anytime. If your noodles are browning before the bubble stop, that means heat is too high. And so you want to turn it down a little. And that's it. Finally, we need some classic Khao Soi condiments that are served on the side, otherwise it is not complete. Most important thing is pickled mustard greens. These are going to be the crunchy, tart bits that will help cut the richness of the curry. I think it's very important. You can find it relatively easy at most Asian stores, but you can also use any other kind of tart, crunchy pickles if you like pickled carrots, pickled cauliflower would go great with this. And then we've got some dried fried chili flakes. So all you need to do is take some dried chili flakes, fry them in a little bit of oil until they turn dark and smoky. This is to add extra spiciness because Khao Soi broth itself is not very spicy. If you don't eat spicy, you can skip it. And then we have some raw shallots or red onions for some extra freshness. Now, I personally prefer red onions because they're not as pungent and they're a bit sweeter, but you can go with shallots, either one. And then finally, some lime wedges for a little extra acidity. This is also optional, but I do think a little bit is nice. And that's it. It's assembly time. Okay, I've got lots of water boiling, and then before you drop the noodles, make sure you loosen them first. And in they go. And you can do all the portions at once because these are going to take about 3 minutes. So this is not like some other rice noodles recipes that I've done where I blanch them one at a time. You don't want to be doing this one at a time. Timing, it's going to vary depending on the exact brand of noodles that you're using, the thickness, everything. So 3 minutes is what my noodles take. Your noodles might take different time. You have to use your judgment there. And by the way, if you're doing a lot, it would help to put a little bit of oil in your bowl to help the noodles separate. And then when you're separating them into portions, it'll be less of a pain. Pot switcheroo time. I have been looking forward to this. Now in Thailand, because we eat small portions, you're typically going to get 1 chicken drumstick each, but you can do 2. I've made it so that there's enough for 2 per person. And the broth is quite rich, so you don't need a ton. You don't need to drown the noodles in it. A little bit of crispies, which you inevitably have to break in order for things to fit. And this is how you serve it. And then you let people put in the condiments themselves because these are technically all optional. So don't put these in the serving bowl. Now we put the condiments on. Pickled mustard greens. I prefer the stem parts because they're crunchy than the leaf parts, but it's up to you. Some onion and a little bit of chili flakes. Oh, lime, just a little. You can overdo it and then you don't want it to be sour. Okay. Get things mixed up. This is very exciting. So good. Chicken should be so tender that you can open it easily with chopsticks and a spoon. If it's not there, it hasn't had long enough. Oh man, it's so satisfying. There's so much stuff going on. The hardest thing is what do I want the next bite to have? You know? There's crispies and chicken and the bits and the... It's a very fun dish. It's so good. I will close the show, but I need one last. So good. so good. So worth the effort. It might have looked like this was a lot, but trust me, I've done this many times. And if you spread out the work, like I would usually make the curry paste on one day, make the curry on the next day, or make the curry and curry paste on one day and then eat the next day. Like split up the work however works for you, and it really doesn't seem like a ton of work. All the condiments I prepared in a tray like this, wrap the whole thing, and then it's ready to go, and you just keep it in the fridge and it's ready to go whenever. If you want to have this like a couple times throughout the week, you don't need to re-prep any of the little bits and pieces. So it's actually less work than it looks. And of course, this can be frozen. I'll include all the advanced prep tips and any sort of storage advice in the blog post as always. So the recipe, as always, will be on hotthaikitchen.com. A special thanks to all of our Patreon members who help support the show. If you want to know what that's all about and how you can join my private Discord so we can chat about all things Thai food related, check out the link in the description below. Thank you as always for watching, and I will see you next time. Sawadee ka.